Welcome to another episode Out There with Johnny. Last video I talked about the introduction of this new mount from iOptron called the SkyHunter. I did the unboxing, a brief description of it, and some capabilities. This video I'm going to do a deeper dive into it. I'm also going to explain and talk about all the trials and tribulations that all of us who bought this had with it when we first got it. This came out in July of this year, 2022, and when it came out, it had issues. It had some pretty significant issues. From July through September, these were pretty much non-operational. So what was happening is we would hook everything up, follow directions, do everything we're supposed to do, and then when you first turn it on, it appeared to be working fine. But the first thing that fell was the multi-speed selection. It only had one speed, and it was a very slow speed. And then the next problem we found is when we would go out there and try to collect images with it, all of the stars would appear as double stars. In other words, this thing was actually jerky, and you couldn't even get a 30-second exposure out of it. You were lucky to get 20 seconds. But it was erratic, the speeds didn't work, and there was a lot of, it created a lot of problems for us that had these. Many people just sent them back immediately, said they wanted a refund, it wasn't ready for release, they wanted nothing to do with it. A few of us, 2 or 3 of us, actually stuck with it and worked with iOptron to try to figure out what's going on. I have several iOptron mounts. I've had several more over the years, and it's one of the companies I do trust that, yeah, if they have a problem, they'll fix it and they'll work with you. So to make a really long 2 months of data going back and forth, testing and trials, what we ended up with from iOptron was they created an entirely new control board, new components, different components, more robust. And what they did is, if you wanted to replace it yourself, you just send an email showing that, your original purchase date, blah 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 blah. They send you a new control board with a return label to send the old ones back so they could study the old boards. Replacing the board was about a 20-minute job, if that long. Very simple, very direct. The directions they sent to do it with photos was excellently done. So upon replacing the board, I tested it out on the bench. All my speeds, my slew speeds were all there. They worked great. Next test was, can I actually do astrophotography with this thing? So I did a lot of testing with my setup that I used. I purposely bought this for. Now I will tell you this, the results were outstanding. And I'll show those results at the end of this video. But what I want to do now is I want to set it up to show you how I connect it. I want to show you some idiosyncrasies about this thing that some people may not like. There's some things about it that are really different. It makes it unique in how you set it up and connect certain things. So I want to go into details about that. So give me a couple of seconds here to get things together, and then we'll slowly build up the mount, show you how I build it up, how I use it, and I'll talk about some of those idiosyncrasies that you got to think about before you purchase this. I'll be back in just a few seconds. Alright, let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. So there's several things about this that really may set people off a little bit. It took a little bit for me to get used to it. And the biggest thing I want to talk about is your RA here, especially your clutch. It is completely different than anything I've experienced with previous mounts as far as how do you loosen it, especially if it's already on the mount. Because what they tell you in the instructions is to loosen this, they actually recommend you take an Allen head or something that's strong, wrench. There's a hole actually made for it to go in here. And then what you want to do is as you're looking at it, you want to go counterclockwise to yourself. because you've got to really crank it hard to get it to let go. And as you use it throughout the night, it actually tightens itself tighter and tighter, to the point that some people made the comment they feel like they're going to break it if they try to loosen it. And it can become quite hard. I'm not sure why they went with this design, but it's one of the things that will put some people off right away. I've gotten used to it, and I found a different way to actually loosen it other than trying to take an Allen wrench or something stiff and hard to put in that hole and then putting a lot of force on it to try to get the turn. Because honestly, you feel like you're going to break it. It doesn't actually break it, but it feels like it. Because what's so odd about this is let's see if I can get it here. You can see there's a hole going all the way through it. That's a hole you look through for polar alignment if you don't use the iPolar camera. That's a separate option that mounts here onto your bubble. So you just look through here and you get a really, really rough polar alignment. Because this is actually intended for more of a wide field use for imaging. But some guys I've talked to have gotten those, it's a wrench that they put on here and they break it, they have to put on this side, they put a wrench on this side to get enough leverage to break it. I mean, that's how stiff it has gotten for some people. So that puts a lot of people off. The next thing I want to show you is this here. This is a brand new design, but if you look in here, let's see if we can capture it, maybe not. That is a mini USB, not a USB-C. For something that comes out in 2022 that's not USB-C is a little strange, because everything's going to USB-C. So this goes back to a mini. Minis were before the micros. So if you've got mini cables laying around the house in your closet, you might want to dig them out because you're going to need them for this. That's for doing any software updates, charging it, or controlling it via cable. So that's the two things, the RA and the Mini, that will put a lot of people off. The other thing is the battery compartment here is held by tabs. You got a tab on this side here and a tab over on this side, up here. If you bump this hard enough in the right position, it falls out and it'll leave your battery dangling. So you want to be very careful of that. It doesn't take a lot for that to fall out. It doesn't fall out on its own. You've got to hit it, but it will fall out. So be very careful when you're putting your hands on this at nighttime, because your battery will pop out and it'll just hang there. It does have a hand controller specifically made for this. The hand controller goes here, and then on the back side you have your buttons, your on-off switch here, and then you have your buttons here. You have sun, moon, 1x, half x, and then you get your north south. That's your lights up here, and then you got your buttons to control certain things. The key thing here is if the south button light is lit, you're south. You don't want that light lit if you're north. The other thing is, the only way you know if you're in AZ mode or equatorial mode is if one of the speed indicator lights is on, you're in equatorial mode. If all your lights are off, you're in AZ mode. So, and to get from the different modes, there's a button sequence you've got to do with the power button. It's in the instruction manual. I'm not going to go into it details here because it's all online. But that's the other thing you have to be aware of. And these lights are recessed. So at nighttime, you've got to get squarely back behind it and look in to see those lights. They're not viewable from the sides or from any little bit of a distance. So you got to make sure you know what mode you're in before you put it on a mount, because it gets very difficult to see. So Annoyances, it sounds like a lot. It's not, but it's something you've got to get used to. You definitely have to get used to it. So with that, pointing all that out, let's go ahead and start setting it up like I typically do. This particular model, or this particular combination I bought, came with a tripod. It's a stainless steel tripod. It's a little 1-inch tripod. It's not the greatest tripod, but for what I use, it's fine. This actually is a 3/8 thread on your RA or on the bottom here, so any photograph tripod will take this. Same thing with if you're using the equatorial adapter, 3/8 on the bottom here. You can put it on any tripod. So let's set this thing up. It does come with a pier extender, not this one. It came with an all black one. It was shorter than the SkyWatcher version, and it wasn't as heavy as a pier. It's very usable by all means, but I actually gave that away with something else, and I kept the SkyWatcher one because I'd already modified it to take the shoe on the side here to allow me to hook up my ASI Air Plus. All I did was I drilled a couple of holes in the tube, tapped them out with the screw size of the shoe that I bought from Amazon, screwed it in place, and now my ASI Air Plus just hangs here. So what I do is I take the tripod, run the screw up to the bottom here so I can attach it. And once I have that in place, then what I do is I take the EQ base, I unscrew the top part of the pier. This is the other thing I like about this, is I can take this apart, put it onto the base here like this, nice and tight, and have an arrow here. Align it to one of the screws. Because there's an indentation there, you feel the indentation, tighten it up, you tighten up the other three. Now, what I want to show you about this base, this is the other piece that makes this really unique. You see the profile of this base is very different from any of the other EQ bases, whether it's William Optics, SkyWatcher, or whatever. It's very different. This piece here is also very different in the fact that depending on your latitude you're at, that screw goes in a different hole. When I received it, I had to move it because I'm at 30. So I had to move this to the screw hole that accounted for 30 degrees. So not only do you have your adjustment here that you can turn it up and down to do fine adjustments, you've got a coarse adjustment with this screw right here. So once I got that in place, do this. I'm going to turn this to the side. We'll do it like that. Okay. Now what you do is you have a small knob here. You have to slide this down on it. It's going to back up to that screw. It's going to hit that screw you set, and then you tighten it down. And now you're set up for EQ mode as far as how it's actually hooked up. Now remember I talked about having to loosen your RA? So what I've learned to do is put it all in the mount, anchor it solidly. Your brackets got to go counterclockwise to the bottom of the mount. So I just turn the mount clockwise and break it and loosen that clutch. And then I have more control with it here. That's how I loosen it. And then I just tighten it back where I want it to go. The reason people get frustrated with this is because when you start trying to do your balance and this thing's frozen in place, it becomes very difficult to break. So you turn this clockwise, the top piece clockwise in reference to you, or in this case me, and then you can actually control the clutch better here. But keep in mind, this isn't anchored, and this isn't just a compression clutch. This also holds everything in place. See how this is getting all wobbly? You can actually take this out and this whole thing just pops off. So you got to be careful with that, and realize that. Don't loosen it to the point this thing falls off. Now, once you get that done, then you put your mount, you can put your scope in, or you can put your counterweights on first. Let me flip this thing around where I can get to it a little bit better. You've got two places you can do your counterweight. You can do it here, or you can do it here. Now, what I've learned with my particular scope that I use all the time, if I put it up here, I don't get enough range to counterweight it properly. If I put it down here, I'm close, but I'm not exactly there. The problem you're going to run into is this. If I put it up here, I only actually have this much travel because I hit the base, or actually hit the mount. If I put it down here, then I only have this much travel because then I hit this. So you don't get the full travel of this bar in either place, depending on where you put it. So what I do is I have to put it on here, and since I already know where it's going to be at, what I have to do is I have to get as close to this as I can get without interference. And again, this is where the whole braking thing comes into effect, because when it's so tight, you got to break it. And then what I do, and then I have to, because as you go this way with your mount, it wants to tighten back up. So I loosen this up enough to make sure I'm missing everything here. Because as I swing around, you see this little spot right here, just misses it. That's what you've got to look for. And then you can tighten it back up using your clutch here. There we go. So it's kind of a two-way thing. You tighten this up, but you want to put it in a place to where when it's completely tight, you're back in zero position. So you have to play with it a little bit sometimes to get it to tighten up right. It's a little different. I've gotten used to it. I was frustrated with it at first until I started figuring out the idiosyncrasies of it. But now that I've kind of got it figured out, it actually sets up very quick, especially since I use the same setup every single time. So now we go to put the scope on. Now the deck's a lot easier to mess with, so it doesn't have that same issue you have with this. So we put it up here, you slide this in place. Tighten it down. Now let me show you another little thing about this you need to understand. You need to look at. When you are tightening this down, you got it balanced, that's good. When you're tightening this down, this piece here, you can pull it up and rotate it without loosening it. Because what you want to do is you want to make sure it's never going down like that, because now it hits your mount. Depending which way you're going, it's going to hit your mount, especially on this side. So what you always want to do is make sure this piece is pulled straight up, rotate it up, let it click back in place. Now it's never going to hit anything. It also helps as a wire guide. So then the scope's up. Now you're up and ready. This piece of it's up and ready to go, and you just tighten your declination clutch like you would any other clutch, and you're good to go. The next thing I'm going to do, let me flip this thing around again. Is I'm going to take my ASI Air Plus, I'm going to put it on my shoe, and it's going to be anchored there. Then I'm going to connect my camera and rotate and connect my camera up. I'm not going to worry about routing all the wires correctly for this presentation. Connect it in. Then I'm going to connect the power to my camera for my cooling. Connect it to the ASI Air. And then I'm going to take a USB Mini. See if I can get that to focus there. It's just a standard Mini. We're going to focus on it. Come on. It's a hard time. Well, plug it into the ASI Air, and then I'm going to take the Mini and I'm going to plug it into the USB slot here. Now my ASI Air Plus will totally control this mount through this cable. Now, we haven't figured out how to get it to wirelessly connect yet, but we're working on it. But right now, the USB cable from the ASI Air Plus, and I can do everything with this mount. Do the plate solving, polar line, I do everything through this camera, through this telescope. Slew, go-tos, everything. And this setup now, this particular setup is working perfectly for me. It's very light, it's portable, it's nothing to carry it. The results that I've gotten so far, I'm very pleased with. So now that you see how I've got it connected, now you see how I'm using it, you understand the trials and tribulations we went through. And the big thing is, it's not your normal mount, or I should say your usual mount. It does have its idiosyncrasies that you've got to realize are there. I'll try to share those with you on this video so you understand what you're getting into. I like the mount. Personally, I love it to death. And like I said, I got rid of all my other mounts. My AZ GTI is gone. My Skywatcher Star Adventure 2i is up for sale. My SAM module is up for sale because I have no need for them. This replaces all three of those. That's great. So wirelessly connecting to it, we're working on it. I haven't seen any results yet. If you want to see the long drawn out whatever we all went through to get these things to work, I invite you to go to Cloudy Nights, go to the forums, look under mounts, or just go to your search bar under forums, type in SkyHunter, it'll pop up right away. I'm on there with my discussions and my results and so forth and so on, including some emails that came from iOptron. But they did a good job. They got it working. They fixed it. They turned around a completely new design board in 2 months. And actually, by industry standards, it's pretty good, especially from a big corporation, especially coming from overseas. So I'm pleased with it. I'm very pleased with it. So enjoy the results at the end of this video. If you got any questions, post them in the comments. I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And if I can't answer it, I'll tell you I just can't answer it. But if you're considering this mount, I strongly suggest that if you buy it from a third party, ask them if it has the new control board in it. If they can't answer the question, then it probably doesn't have it, and you don't want to mess with that. So it's very important that you know it has a second board, or the new redesigned board in it. I don't know if iOptron recalled anything. I don't know. I do know that for a while these weren't available because they stopped the production. They stopped stocking to get them fixed. But there could be some third parties out there that still have the original one in a box somewhere. So you've got to ask that question. Does it have the new control board? So with that said, enjoy the photos afterwards, and I will see you next time out there.